Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Rafael Carvajal. I have the privilege of being the director here at the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. Many of you may have seen my budget presentation at the Board of Supervisors meeting on February 10th, where in the advent of Measure G, we are being asked to be more transparent about our budgeting and present our budget publicly, both to the Board of Supervisors and to the community at large. Recognizing that the time frame that was provided to us really did a disservice to you and the community in helping really understand what it is that our budget looks like and what it is that our department does in return for the funding that we receive. We put together this video to help provide some additional insight into our budget and what you as a community are receiving in return for the funding and investment that you make in our department. The intent of this video is to walk through our budget presentation and our budget asks so we have a good, clear understanding of what it is that we do and the services that you receive on behalf of the department. This first slide attempts to capture all of our services and mandatory duties. This is what we like to call our pillars of service. We have our consumer protection programs where we fight for consumers to get what they paid for. We have our housing and tenant protections where we help tenants stay in their homes and hold bad actors accountable. Our Office of Labor Equity, where we oversee the county's worker protections, where we help workers get the wages they have earned, and our Office of Immigrant Affairs and our Access to Justice programs, where we help guide people through our complex civil and immigration legal systems, or help them avoid those systems altogether. Our Office of Cannabis Management is helping develop a framework that prioritizes public safety, compliance, and responsible implementation consistent with state laws and board direction, and advocacy and community engagement. We really rely on our policy and legislative advocacy to promote and advocate on behalf of our communities. And our most recent addition to our department is our community centers, where we hope to directly engage and bring our services to the community rather than the community coming to us. Our programs are as diverse and intersectional as the challenges our communities face, but I want to emphasize that at its core, all of our work is about economic justice, protection and stability, and making sure our communities are treated justly, protecting people before they fall into crisis, and stabilizing households when they're already there. This next slide attempts to provide a snapshot of our overall departmental budget. Do recognize that this slide does not provide enough detail and information for someone who's not involved in the day-to-day process to understand what it really means. So I'm hoping that I can provide a little bit deeper insight through this video. The first thing that you will notice, if you look at other departmental budgets, their budgets are much larger than ours. As you can see, our budget is small relative to other county departments and heavily relying on NCC, with almost half of our budget funded through direct NCC and 51% of it through a combination of fees, state funding, grants, and other sources. So what is NCC? NCC is our local generated dollars, typically coming from your property taxes or tax sales revenue that happen within the unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County. What is appropriation? Well, the easiest way for me to explain appropriation is essentially the credit limit that the Board of Supervisors is providing our department to spend on the services that we anticipate we will provide in the future years. Another thing that you will notice is that our budget reflects 39% of the funding going to salary and employee benefits. This pays for the people doing the work day in and day out, providing you services and connecting you to resources here at DCBA. Another thing that you will notice from our budget is that $49.3 million, or 60% of our funding, goes out in services and supplies. This captures all of the contracting that the department does. This means that the majority of our funding is being contracted out to our community-based partners to provide and connect you with the services that we oversee as a department. When we look at the sources of funding, we see that we receive very little, actually zero, federal assistance, and some state assistance, and some funding from fees and charges for service. This captures that we receive no funding support from the federal government, some support from the state government, and the rest of the revenue is coming from other grants and resources that we bring into the department. For example, our rent registration fees, which offset the cost of operating the county's rent stabilization program, meaning that the balance of our money really is net county cost dollars, which means that any fluctuations in the county's overall budgeting has a disproportionate impact on the department and the services that we're able to provide. This next slide provides a snapshot of the distribution of the funding that we receive throughout the pillars of the work and services that we provide as a department. As you can see, 46% of our funding is the largest share of our budget, goes to preventing displacement, underscoring the county's commitment and the work that we do, helping provide housing stability. 15% goes to supporting our immigrant communities, which during this period of heightened federal instability helps ensure access to legal and supportive services. 7% of our budget goes to protecting workers and promoting fair competition for responsible employers. The remaining 32% is a combination of our core services that help safeguard residents and promote fairness. This includes our access to justice programs, our financial empowerment programs, and support for our community centers. Even though this 32% is clustered together, they do represent some of our most impactful programs, such as our access to justice programs and our consumer protection programs, where even though the investment is low, the output and value to our community is high. For me, this next slide is probably the most important slide in this presentation. This slide attempts to capture what these services and these investments mean to you and our community. This slide shows how in fiscal year 24-25, we protected people before they fell into crisis and stabilized households when they were already there, turning policy into real measurable impact. We infused more than $90 million directly into our communities and serving over 230,000 residents that year. And this year, we are on track to exceed that. Take into account our budget. This means that your investment covered not only our costs, but created exponential resources and services to the community. Your investment in DCBA doesn't simply fund operations. It's an investment that protects people, stabilizes households in real time, and reduces far more expensive interventions later down the line. So for example, our economic and justice worker protection work helped put $4.3 million in restitution back in the pockets of our community. Our housing stability and eviction prevention work helped put more than $40 million in rental assistance and rental relief back into households. Our access to justice and community stabilizing programs helped invest more than $45 million into our communities. This next slide provides a snapshot of what we're requesting as a department as an investment for the fiscal year 26-27. This slide highlights our requests. Cognizant of our budgetary state and the reality of needs in our community, I feel we as a department are putting together a balanced request. If you look at the first line, it seems that we are requesting $34.1 million to support our housing and tenant protections efforts. But in reality, what this is a mix of carryover funds and technical requests, such as recognizing revenue. As part of the budgetary process, we must recognize that we have new income coming into the department formally as part of our budget in order to spend it. In addition, if we have underspent from the previous year for certain programs, we have to ask that it be recognized and carried over for the following year to allow us to invest it in the programs they came from. But this does include a $9.3 million request to support our Stay Housed LA program. And it does also include 12 new positions to right-size and strengthen the services in our Housing and Tenant Protections Bureau. All these costs are fully offset with revenue and don't represent any new additional costs to the county. We're also requesting $8.4 million in ongoing net county costs for our Office of Immigrant Affairs to help sustain our Represent LA Immigration Legal Services program and funding for 6 new positions. The request for these resources is our attempt to ensure that our Office of Immigrant Affairs is equipped and ready to meet the moment that we are currently facing. We are requesting $2.4 million in one-time bridge funding for our Office of Cannabis Management, which is a targeted one-time investment to stand up the program with the expectation that the ongoing operations will be offset by fees and tax revenue once licensing is fully underway. Lastly, we have our 14th yearly funding request for our self-help legal access centers housed throughout county courthouses, which offer our community access to justice in some of their most vulnerable moments. This next slide attempts to capture some of the key challenges that we are facing as a community and as a department in our attempt to respond to those. We are navigating volatility driven by external forces and fiscal uncertainty, pressures that increase demand for our services while limiting funding predictability. Heightened and unpredictable federal immigration enforcement is one of the most immediate pressures. When enforcement actions increase, households destabilize quickly. Our response is coordinated and intentional. Strengthen legal services, invest in language access, rely on trusted community partnerships, and align closely across county departments so residents receive accurate information and access to due process. At the same time, a majority of our budget is net county costs. Federal policy shifts that reduce local resources create disproportionate pressure on core safety net services such as ours, even as demands rise. Our approach is disciplined, prioritize prevention and services with demonstrated outcomes, reduce duplication, leverage outside funding, and plan conservatively. Finally, many of our programs rely on short-term funding, which limits long-term planning and staffing stability. Nevertheless, we ensure that we use those dollars strategically to stabilize and right-size operations while preserving flexibility to realign quickly as policy shifts. Because increasingly, DCBA is not only asked to help shape policy, but put it into action. So as we close out, I really hope that this presentation helped provide a little bit more insight into our department, the investments being made into our department, and the value our programs and services bring to you and your family as you're watching this. I also want to thank and acknowledge our staff here at DCBA who every day come here, bring their life experience, their empathy, their compassion, and their knowledge and commitment to these programs to serve you, our community members. I also would like to extend my gratitude to all our community-based partners. We contract with over 100 community-based partners who deliver these services on our behalf. And finally, I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for their continued investment and trust in DCBA to deliver these key services.